Hi, welcome to Script Daddies. I've been thinking like we're probably not gonna have one this season, but we do need to figure out like our jingle.
We do.
We have so many musician friends too,
Yeah.
so I'm like not worried about how to do it. It's more just like we have to figure out what is it.
Yeah.
What does Script Daddies sound like in music?
Script babies. If you're hearing a jingle, this is if you're hearing a jingle before this, that you're hearing where it was incepted.
Truly. And if we still don't have one yet, and you're listening to this, and you go, "This is what it would sound like," send it to us.
Yes,
we want to hear it. What do we sound like?
You know what I realized before we get into our like little weekly like check-in. One thing that you have, patently deprived the Script babies of is the Dirty Chai Saga. Because
the Dirty Chai Saga.
I do feel like it reached a conclusion, and they didn't know. And like 3 episodes ago, we were like, we're going to keep talking about this.
You're
and
right.
we stopped talking about it.
So you're right. You're right. So it all started with the fact that Colin and I both love dirty chais. I'm very sensitive to caffeine. So we've since had to break up
now.
Briefly. I'm so jealous.
It's a decaf dirty chai.
Baby, even decaf has been fucking with me though. Is it decaf? Is it actually? Okay. So the reason I reacted that way, like an absolute monster. Colin's got the black lung.
I have a cough that hasn't gone away for a month, Script babies. I'm sorry. Anyway, continue.
Babe, it might be longer than a month now.
It's over a month now. I know. Okay. I got that powder that you gave me.
Good. So. Ooh, which powder? NAC, babies. If you're in LA and you need to be purging your lungs, which we all do, look into some of that NAC. Not a doctor, just saying my acupuncturist recommended it, and it's been so fucking helpful. Anywho, okay, so dirty chai. So we both love them. I'm very, 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 very sensitive to caffeine in a way that really pisses me off. Like it does not align with my values, and I'm upset.
It does not align with my values.
It doesn't. I deserve caffeine.
Oh my God.
And I don't get to have it, and it just feels cruel sometimes, but whatever. So I'm always bouncing back and forth between drinks I can get that have very low caffeine, but like give me a little zhuzh. And so dirty chais, I was going to like my fave little spot in my neighborhood that I love, overpriced, but the vibe is dope. And now I'm mad. That's the conclusion of this. But all this to say, I was saying to Colin how every time I was ordering for like a few times, I was getting different feedback and sass. And it was like
feedback is a generous
term.
Generous term.
Like they
were being fucking assholes.
I feel like
coffee snob assholes.
Ugh.
I said it.
It's been said. Like I have to say, I think I probably ordered this drink at least 14 times before this happened. That's what's weird about it is there were no issues, and then all of a sudden issue.
Because let me paint this picture for you, Script babies. You're a barista. Some of you might actually be baristas. Someone walks in, they say they want a decaf dirty chai. Where does your little brain go to for that? Anyway, continue.
All this to say, all of a sudden, one day I ordered it online on the app that the place had. And it's like, okay, it's ready. And I show up and I say, I'm outside with my son and I'm like, hey, for Carly, she goes, oh, was yours the decaf chai? And I was like, yeah. And she goes, yeah, that's not a thing. There's always caffeine in it. So I canceled your order. To which I thought, you don't do that to a mother. She didn't know it was a mom, but still, it felt personal. But I kept my cool and I said, oh, and I overcompensated. So actually, I know it can't have none, but I just meant that I would like the shot of espresso to be decaf. I don't mind the chai.
Imagine caffeine. Imagine that.
And she looked at me like I had a fucking third eye. And not in the good way, and was like, okay. And like turned around and I was like, no.
You know what? Her third eye's blind. And she is not a crystal baller.
But now you're saying in a negative way, and they're like my soul band. Or they kind of were. I don't know. Anyway,
they're
I
so
love
incredible.
The best.
I was just trying to make a little quip. I love third eye blind.
It really was a good quip. Okay, so that sucked. That was dramatic. There was, what was the other one? There was one that happened in between.
Well, it ultimately meant you started going to a different...
Yeah, so then one other thing happened, and then finally my line in the goddamn sand was I once again ordered online and showed up, and the guy who I've seen many a time, we've had rapport. We've had a back and forth. I thought, you're a
Script
decent
babies,
guy.
I'm foaming at the mouth here. I'm holding myself back.
He looked at me, and he goes... And he was like, and I was like, for Carly, and he looked, and he's like, oh yeah, okay, so I'm gonna let it go this time. It's on us this time, but you put your order in wrong, and so you weren't charged fairly. So just next time, if you could order it differently, and I have to be honest. I'd like to think I'm a good person and all that, but I had a moment where I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I have probably spent like $1,000 here I go there so much and it's so overpriced that it was the sass on it felt so.
In that moment, Carly was like, do I flip the table?
Do I flip
this table?
No, I just was like, and then I got bummed because I was like, you know what? I always justify this place, even though it is overpriced. I like to write here. That's the part that sucks, is I weirdly like to write there. Whenever I go, it's a really small place. There always magically is one seat open for me, and it feels kind of like, but this really ruined the vibe. This guy just got really, and so I said to him, I'm like, can you explain to me how to order it then? Because I wouldn't want to not pay fairly. Hello, I'm already spending $8 on your goddamn drink.
Sorry. It might be your job to just adjust the price and notify the customer. Oh, imagine that. Fuck off. It pisses me off so much.
It's crazy. So then he goes, well, you can't mark it decaf. And I was like, but it is decaf. He goes, no, but then it won't charge it fairly. You need to say a shot of espresso, and then in the notes you need to put decaf. He's like, these websites aren't actually meant for stores. They're meant for or for restaurants. They're meant for like or coffee shops, whatever. But in my head, I'm like, well, then why wouldn't you just make it its own whatever? It doesn't matter. It was so. And then he said to me 2 more times. But again, it's on us, but it's important that it's paid fairly. And that's what pissed me off because I'm like, I tip every time and I shouldn't, which is on me. Honestly, I'll own that. I'm not even going to put that in their face.
The assumption that you are trying to stiff them.
Yes, but I'm like, I have spent
it's not assumption, the implication that you're trying to stiff them.
And like, we're going to be cool this time. I'm like, bro, I've brought my friends here. I buy your overpriced.
I didn't set up your online booking fucking shit. So, like, you fix it.
So it had a lasting effect, and I decided that I just wasn't really interested in going there anymore, and I haven't since. And it's not to say we'll never go again, because that's so dramatic. It just was one of those experiences where I was bummed while it was happening, because I was like, I love this place, but this is like, the attitude is getting to be a lot. And I'm willing to.
Is not cute.
And so then I went to the other place that I told you about, fell in love with, there was like the nicest people on the planet. And here's the proof of it. They actually overcharged me one day $1, and I didn't care because they were so nice. We were just like chatting it up. And then about whatever, that I didn't even care that she charged me $1 too much. I was like, whatever, she's cute and sweet, and I'm going to let her have it. So it's like, if you're just nice about things, then it's all good. But the way he went about it was so poopy.
Fucking normal about it. Mm-hmm. In this situation, there is a normal and abnormal.
Thank you.
To be a little snob about it, and then to fucking blame the customer for your shitty online ordering system. Script babies, I'm heated.
Don't do it.
I'm ready to go to the mat.
I know you really were upset, and
it pissed me off.
Say it was very vindicating.
Because I have worked.
I was like, oh.
I have worked service things, and I've done it, and like, that's on you, baby. That's on you. On them, the company. They need to fucking fix that shit. And that's also terrible customer service.
Yeah, bummed me out. I was like, but I will probably go back at some point. I needed a sec because it was just like, what the heck? It's just a fucking decaf chai.
It should just be a decaf
with soy milk. Decaf. Anyway, how was your week?
It was good. It was fine. Honestly, Script Babies, the week was pretty stressful. Yes, it was my birthday.
We went to Don Cuco's.
We did. We had 2 margaritas.
We did, which, girl, she felt it a little bit the next day.
I did not, surprisingly.
Only a teeny ween. I did teeny
I was surprised I did not. But I had fun. It was good. It was like stressful and also fun week, and also deeply, deeply annoying. For so many reasons. I hate to be annoyed.
It's really my least favorite.
But yeah. I don't know. You know what was really sweet yesterday?
What?
Actually, my boss did a post about me on social media that really warmed my heart. So
that's the best.
If you're listening, I want you to know thank you. And it really, really warmed my heart and brought a smile to my face. It was very sweet.
It's so sweet.
Mm-hmm. It was really sweet.
I love that. Can I tell you that today I realized I was like taking a little break from Instagram over your birthday. To be fair, I saw you in celebration for your birthday.
I have a hot take about Instagram now.
But I can't wait. But essentially, I realized I just like wasn't on it, and so I like didn't post about it. But like my soul, then I was like, oh, like I missed an opportunity to tell the world how much I love Colin, and that made me sad. But I will say, I so much preferred that I was with you.
Yes. Also, let me. If there's any sort of weight of that on your shoulders, let me lift it off.
Lift it.
Because there's no greater feeling of freedom than when I was saying this to you like a couple months ago, than when when you're offline for so long that you don't post and people expect you not to post, there's this weight that's lifted off your shoulders of having to feel like you have to make this big emotional post for someone like a best friend or something.
Yeah,
where like every year,
true.
or like for your siblings, every year you have to up the ante and be just as sentimental as you were last year.
It is kind of wild.
Don't get me wrong, it's beautiful. It's so sweet. Like my mother writes the sweetest post every year. But like
I read it today and it really, my heart.
It was very sweet.
So beautiful.
It's mostly about me loving food, which is
when
so
she
true.
said your little mouth used to shake when you were a baby, when we would bring food
I thought it
towards
was
you.
seizing.
I was like, as if I couldn't love you more. That somehow, because one of the things I say about you is that you're my favorite eater.
I eat what I
You
want.
eat what
I
you
eat
want, and
what I
you
eat.
and you enjoy food in a way that like I think the world like you genuinely like I just feel like you taste food more than the average person. Person.
But yeah, no, there is a freedom in not having to make those posts.
Well, then never mind. I didn't mean it. Whatever.
You know
I wrote
what?
it in a card. So anyway.
But yeah, anyway, it was good.
Yeah.
It was good. Had me feeling a little crazy this week, I'm going to be honest. A little all over the place.
Sometimes
you know what?
Do that.
Well, you know what else can make you feel crazy?
What?
The pressure of having to be perfect. And nowhere else is it better explored than in the film that we're going to do today, Script Babies. Carly, take it away.
Which is Black Swan. The sounds we just did have nothing to do with this movie.
You did Mario and I did fucking Elphaba, like the war cry from Wicked.
We literally couldn't have had a worse sound. Whatever. It's what happened. So anyway, we're doing Black Swan. So excited. And I realized, even though this is our season 1 finale, I realized one thing I want to do differently.
That's right,
for
Script
season
Babies.
2.
This is the finale.
It's crazy. I'm
of season 1.
Season 1.
And
finale.
don't worry. Yeah. I think we already know what our episode 1 of season 2 script is.
Oh yeah, baby.
Whatever. Anyway,
this train
There's
keeps
more to
on
come.
a rolling.
She's going.
This is just it keeps rolling. We got picked up for season 2. But what I decided that I want to do.
Wonderly presents Script Daddy.
Yes, bitch. Call it in Spotify, whoever you are. Like, come here. I want to talk. Anyway. I decided what I want to do for season 2, and we're gonna start it right now. Is do the log line. I think we should.
Oh my god! Yes,
right. Fun.
You can just find the log lines on. Well, I guess that makes sense. Is it from IMDb?
Yeah.
Read it. Yes.
So obviously this might not be the log line they sold it with, but it's what the final log line was. Yeah, it hit me that it actually kind of surprised me that we never thought
that like as actually.
It's kind of stupid.
Dare I say crucial?
It is crucial because it's just another fun way to dive into like how things are interpreted. Granted, there is always a part of me that's like, I always think that the log lines you see on IMDb are the ones they came up with post film.
It does.
It's never for what they did for the script. I don't think so at all. But it's still fun. It's still fun to watch a whole ass film condensed into like 2 sentences. I'm always down to see that happen. So anyway, Black Swan. The year was 2010. The log line is, Nina is a talented but unstable ballerina on the verge of stardom. Pushed to the breaking point by her artistic director and seductive rival, Nina's grip on reality slips, plunging her into a waking nightmare.
Yeah, I dare say.
Director, Darren Aronofsky. The writer was Mark Hyman, Andreas Hayes, and John J. McLaughlin.
The script that we read, the only credited writer is John. What's his last name? Heyman.
You mean John McLaughlin?
Mark Heyman. Sorry, Mark Heyman.
Oh, interesting.
I think we read an earlier draft.
Huh. Oh, well, that wouldn't make sense. It stars Natalie Portman, the Queen.
Natalie Portman.
Mila Kunis.
Also in this movie, the Mila Kunis in this movie.
Mm-hmm. And Vincent Cassel, I believe is his last name. I got to be honest, I really got to work on my pronunciations. Like I'm
pretty sure that's how you say his name.
The budget was $13 million.
Okay.
And it grossed $330 million.
Yeah, that was such a fucking hit.
Yeah.
Juggernaut movie.
It truly was.
I mean, that profit's insane.
Yeah. I do have a teeny bit of trivia.
Give it.
5 Oscar noms. It was one of 6 horror films to ever be nominated for an Oscar. The others being The Exorcist, Jaws, and Silence of the Lambs, and Get Out.
And Now the Substance.
And Now the Substance, so cool. This script languished in development for a decade. Black Swan originated with a script by Andreas Haynes called The Understudy, but that's not what we read, so that's also interesting.
Interesting.
And instead of the world of ballet, it was set in off-Broadway theatrical scene, which is so interesting.
Ballet works a lot better.
Yeah. Aronofsky, I can't speak, described the original script as Roman Polanski meets All About Eve.
Oh.
Natalie trained for hours every day, 7 days. How many? It just says for hours every day, 7 days a week for an entire year.
I remember hearing that.
I mean, makes sense. Dear God. I don't know how you can't fake that shit, man. Mila Kunis practiced for 5 hours a day, 7 days a week for 3 months. The director. Okay. So I'm going to read this. I don't love this, but it did kind of make me laugh because one of the points I made about the greater overall take of what this film, like the statement it's making.
Yeah.
I literally wrote it down, and then this reiterated that something that actually frustrated me about it a little bit. The director unsuccessfully tried to whip up animosity between Natalie Portman and Mila Kunis in an attempt to generate authentic hostility between the lead actress that would translate on-screen tension. Darren Aronofsky commanded Natalie Portman and Mila Kunis to stay apart from one another during filming. To get jealousy and resentment, he'd send each actress text messages claiming that the other was doing a far better job. Portman and Kunis, who'd already been friends, caught on quickly. Whenever he would send a text praising the other actress, they would also congratulate them, foiling his scheme. I really did not like that detail.
I hate that.
And
it's so eye roll. It's like that. It's like, okay, they're also actors. Let them do their job.
100.
And it's also like literally you're making a movie that is skewering that kind of behavior and showing how dangerous that behavior is, and then you're going to do it during the making of it.
I literally wrote this. The movie really flirts with you have to be awful to be great.
Yeah.
Through Tomas's version of mentorship, like the only way he can get to her is by being a horrible, terrible person.
Yeah.
Through what Nina has to become in order to actually do the performance she wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I resent the idea that you have to become awful in order to like be like your most brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I accept that is true for some people.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my goal, but that's what made it bother me though, that feels like such a strong thing about the movie that I was just like a little bit bummed again. And the actors, listen, they obviously didn't let it bother them, but I was like, ew, like you're literally pointing out the toxicity of this and then you're doing it.
I have a bit more of a nuanced take than of that. Like that sentiment's very real and I agree with it about this whole thing of having to be awful to be perfect. But I think there's more layers to it than just being awful.
Totally agree. But it was just something about that went in common in my brain where I was like...
It's gross. It's gross behavior, and it's men having weird power dynamics with women, which is all over this film.
It's true.
And, like, really looked down upon, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, the messaging of it ain't good when it comes to that.
Right. Okay.
Interesting.
I am actually excited about these ratings, sharing this time. I weirdly have gone to the other extreme where I'm not scared. I'm not scared, that's an inside joke between Colin and I. But anyway, I'm not scared. But they're the most extreme that I've had so far.
I just got the inside joke.
I'm not scared.
I'm not scared.
Anyway, should I start with my heart is racing, but with excitement?
Do it.
I'm going to start with my rating for the script.
Weird.
This is the most controversial, I think, of the whole season.
I am so ready for it.
6.9. It feels weird.
You just wait.
It feels weird. Okay. I vacillated because I have so few notes on the script, which is so unlike me, to the point where I like had to go like, did I write any notes? and then which again is so unlike me. And I had to put that in perspective up against the fact that you can't really complain formatically. It is an impressive document for formatting. And I know that sounds like a diss, but it's not. It's actually an enormous compliment. Yeah. It's formatted so clearly and so well that I'm actually very impressed by that aspect, that like that made me need it to still be like a higher number. But as far as just like what excites me about a script, it wasn't doing that for me. And so those two things had to balance out. And I landed on 6.9.
I'm shaking. I'm like,
Shake it.
I want to reply.
Okay. All right. What's yours?
So, very similar sentiment. My score, which I did vacillate on, and this is even a little generous. I'll explain why, as I always do. 7.3 out of 10.
Okay.
I wanted to do 7.
I understand.
But here I'll read what I wrote,
Yes.
and then when I get into my notes, you'll see. Obviously, I always flesh it out more. Duh. But this is what I wrote after reading it. I thought the script was good overall. It's a great example of an action-heavy script that still moves quickly. The body horror elements were well done, and I really enjoyed how effortlessly the themes of the movie were woven into the action and dialogue, especially within the first 20 pages. Honestly, I expected to love the experience of reading this script more since I love the movie so much, but overall, it's a solid story that's well told. It's another great example of how the writer did everything they could to execute their vision as closely as possible, and they did it so well that most of what you read in this version made it to the screen. However, I will say that there is a lot that could be cut out, and the dialogue left a lot to be desired, which ultimately led to my daddy score being lower than I initially thought it would be. So here's the thing. That actually, I thought that was going to, it wasn't as harsh as I thought I wrote. It actually seemed very praising. I think it was a little boring.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest.
I agree.
It was a little boring. It was 130 pages long, you guys.
Mm-hmm.
The movie, where it cut a lot of it out, which really worked. But it was long and the dialogue wasn't great, but I thought the messaging and themes that they wove into it that were then expanded upon in the film and really honed in the film, I think it set a really good baseline for it. And for them to get that perspective across through like the lens of horror, and kind of like some of the social themes and stuff like that, that's why I gave it a 7.3 instead of just a 7, because there were interesting ways of adding that in there. And more so than anything, Script Babies, as you know, I'm a slow reader. This is a mostly action script. Yeah. It is mostly action, but the action is broken up into little bite-sized chunks.
Which I very much appreciate.
And the formatting allows your eye to just zoom down the page and read. And
for that, it's like true praise.
Yeah, like that is honestly the best part of this script.
Yes, agreed.
Is that, the formatting and the fact that it led to a movie that let's get into the movie score, but I agree so deeply with what you're saying.
But you just articulated it, so you expanded on it so well. That's exactly how I felt, but I also I had to admit, then it also forced me to have a better understanding for the way I rate things, because again, these ratings are just on our own, like what feels right. And for me, I realized how much my like feeling experience matters in my score. Yet, I'm also so impressed by clean, concise formatting. Like truly, I think it's part of like a skill set and part of craft is like truly finding the art of like clear formatting, but still done in a way that feels
like
sparkly.
I mean, I'm getting ahead of myself as I've done now a couple episodes, but I'm encroaching upon one of my Daddy Do's territory.
Okay. Always.
Actually, I think I'm encroaching upon a couple of my Daddy Do's.
Oh no.
But anyway, what I really love about this script is how, so we are in a psychological body horror thing. And there's a script that it could have gone an ultra technical direction with like all the French verbiage for like, ballet moves and shit like that. It could have gotten really technical and in the weeds with it. It didn't do that
at all.
The sentence structure, and the grammar that's used is all very crisp and cut to the point. There's not really any flowery language at all. And it paints a picture for you in your mind that is very easy to follow. And especially when we get deeper into the story where she's unraveling, she's losing her mind, she's starting to see things. She's the most unreliable narrator. You never get lost on the page. And while I did find, again, a part of this bias, I think I would like this script a lot more had I not known how much I love the movie. But it was really cool to see how a movie that I think is perfect could come from a script that I would be like, you know.
Yeah.
But the way it's written is really, really impressive because you don't get lost or confused. Really, I didn't, at least.
No,
because
you don't.
it's so clear and to the point.
And I wrote something very similar about the idea that like one of my biggest praise for it is how, for it being a slightly different world horror, they broke down some very things that could be very easily confusing, and they just weren't. Like on the paper, they just weren't. And again, it was done through broken up pieces, which was so helpful because when you have a long ass block of when a movie's a lot of action and it's a ton of blocks, my brain sometimes like literally starts to like zoom like just tune out. Whereas you never tune out in this. You're always kind of right there because it moves at a clip. Like it does, despite the fact that it
really moves.
And but for me, I describe this script as kind of feeling clinical.
Yes.
Whereas like
that, like,
or almost like
to
black
the
and white,
also kind of made it a little droll as you got into it.
Like I just wanted to feel more. Like whereas in the movie, it's like you feel so much.
A little garnish.
Yeah, I wanted exactly. I realized I was like, I just wanted a little bit more garnish
because
here.
the dialogue didn't have it either, and the dialogue in the movie far surpasses the dialogue in the script. Where the dialogue in the script is very on the nose.
Very. Also, Natalie Portman brought something to that.
Girl,
that did not live on the page.
She's transcendent.
It did not live on the page because her character on the page is not very interesting. Her arc isn't quite as interesting to me either on the page. Whereas in the film, it is like intoxicating to watch her. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So like that I found very interesting.
That's a great segue into the movie.
Honestly, I probably could have gone higher, but I'm just trusting my gut now, and I don't want, and I'm not going to justify it. 8.5.
Period.
But honestly, it probably could have been a 9, but I just landed on 8.5. It's a fucking great film. Can I just say Say it. The way, this is like a tiny sidebar, but the way that it is filmed is exactly how I would want my film to be, The Road That Leads Home.
Oh, yes. Oh, my God. Yes.
Isn't that insane, Colin?
I loved how the cinematography was almost a character of its own because
that's my note.
It was like, it gives like that feeling. It just instantly gives you that
character in the film.
It adds grit.
It adds grit, and it adds relatability. It makes you feel, it feels more intimate and like more real. And I literally
puts you slightly on edge in a way that is nice.
Because it feels like a character. It feels like the perspective of a person versus these perfectly set up, like manicured shots. Like it's not. It's living and breathing.
And when you think about it, although there's very few POV shots in it, the whole thing is technically first person from Nina because you're experiencing the world and her psychosis as she's experiencing it.
But the camera movements are almost replicating a person.
And she's doing that turn and looking at him. But when she's practicing and like you see the swivel shot, it's like him.
The camera work is so impressive. I literally was like, but it was so crazy, Colin, because literally a couple weeks ago in my head, I was like going through like how for myself, trying to come up with like, what is like the style that I'm picturing for the film. And then I literally I wrote like a lot of movement, borderline docuseries, and like feels like another character in and then the second this movie started, I was like, this is bizarrely, because the movies are so different, but this is bizarrely the exact style that I was imagining. It was so fun. I was like, I can't wait to start calling. But yeah, no, the movie's fucking great. The Natalie Portman ate this like fucking role.
Like she ate the world.
She ate the world. The world ate.
Like if that's the last performance I ever see alive,
I'm okay. I'm good. I'm great, actually. Thanks for asking. I'm great. Nuts. So good.
I almost have no words to express
to the point where
performance does to me.
Everyone else in it is great, but like she is on a whole.
It's one of the best performances ever put on film, hands down, ever.
I agree.
Like it's undeniably incredible.
Agreed.
And even if you don't like the movie, I think you can look at that performance, and I don't think there's any room for gray on this.
I agree.
It's
also,
great.
I want us to make shirts that say undeniably great. Or wait, no, what did you say? Undeniably. What was the other word you said? I was like, I want to describe myself that way. Anyway,
I forgot.
I got too excited. Whatever you said, that's what I want to make a shirt of. Okay. So what's your score? So that was me, because I probably could have put a 9. Like I said, I don't know why I did 8.5, but nonetheless, it is such a good fucking movie. It is. I want to watch it 5 more times.
Yeah.
It's so good.
For me, it's a 10 out of 10.
Ah!
Always has
Wait,
been.
now I'm like mad that
since
I'm.
the first moment I saw the movie.
I get it.
I knew going into this, the movie's always going to have that score for me. That's why reading the script, it was actually really cool to have like, to be like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, this is not the movie.
Yeah.
But at the same time, all the information is there.
Is there.
It
It's
is the movie,
blueprint.
but it's not.
It was the blueprint.
The total blueprint. But 10 out of 10, I wrote a lot for my summary of the movie.
Dive in.
I said, what can I say? Black Swan is a perfect movie. It took all the elements of the script and elevated them to such an extremely high level by cutting the fat and bringing it to life with impeccable directing and out-of-this-world acting. We still learn almost all the information we gain from the script, but in the movie, it's given to us in ways that work so much better. One example is when Nina gets dropped by the male dancer and hits her knee. In the script, it happens during rehearsal, and Nina's convinced Lily set it all up that way. But in the movie, it takes place during opening night, which adds so much more tension and urgency because while it still leads Nina to the same conclusion, Lily fucking her over, it also plays into her ultimate descent into madness and strengthens her reasoning for wanting to kill her. The themes and messaging are also much more honed in the movie without sacrificing anything. From oppressed sexuality to people-pleasing to how the search for perfection will kill you but also make people adore you, to how high stress and demanding environments exacerbate mental illness.
Ooh,
this film is truly a fucked up coming of age story. Coming of age while coming apart. Probably my favorite example yet of how a good script can go on to become a perfect film. It is.
Love you.
Can't say enough good things about this movie.
I'm so excited for this conversation because I really like this film, but I already like it more based on the points you just made. And that's why I fucking love doing this. Because again, I absolutely love this film and rated it that for whatever reason. But already hearing the points that you're making, I'm like, oh no, it makes me like it that much more. Because it really is. It's just a great film.
Assumed when I sat down to read this, I was like, I'm going to have the same feeling I had reading The Notebook or reading because The Notebook I think has been my highest score for a script so far.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I gave it like almost a 10 out of 10
I think
or something
so. Yeah.
like that.
We both were pretty blown away.
But it was such a different experience because I was like, oh wait, okay.
Yeah.
This is the movie, but it's not.
Yeah.
The energy that the movie has isn't there. The pacing is there, which is interesting because on the page, it should have been an over 2-hour movie. But the formatting, you could see how if you just put that into paragraphs, it actually would have been a lot shorter.
Totally.
But yeah, I can't say enough good things because, I mean, Natalie Portman carries this goddamn film on her back, people. Like, there are 2 notes I have from the movie where, so the scene where she calls her mom in the stall to tell her she got the role is some of the best acting ever put on screen. Ever. And then there's another one where she's
a magic person.
When she realizes at the very end, it's the big climax where she realizes that she's lost her fucking mind. She stabbed herself. It wasn't Lily in the closet. Oh my God, I'm crazy. The layers of emotion that go through her face. I know. And then she sits down and puts on that makeup because she's like, well, I've got it. I got what I wanted.
It's all there. It's behind the eyes.
The acting is transcendental.
She literally tells a story without saying a word. Like you see it.
It's so incredible. It had me fucking floored.
Yeah, truly.
Because it's been probably like 4 or 5 years since I've watched this movie.
Not to mention the final shot, her face. That alone. The journey she takes you on there.
Perfect. I was perfect. Like,
and that little tiny smile, even though I will say in the trivia, they both said Natalie and Darren both said they don't think she dies at the end.
Okay. Here's it. That's interesting because watching the movie, I always thought that she lived afterwards, but the script does not mince words, script babies. She dies. It even says like as the life like leaves her body or whatever. But it's not quite as satisfying. But I also have the juxtaposition of what the movie is.
True.
So that's actually not very fair to say. I will say.
But isn't that interesting? Because I'm like, I hate to say this, but part of me likes it more if she did. Is that fucked up?
If she died? I know. I think I do too, because it's only kind of like the tragedy of it all.
Yes.
Of this poor girl who was so incredible and so talented, but was just held back by, her upbringing and like her fear. And then she thought that she had to go to this place of ultimate self-mutilation to be respected. And it's tragic and it's fucking sad and it's fucking real.
Well,
Look at Britney Spears. Granted,
Oh
this
my
industry, but it plays into that. How people manipulate these people and they place their own shit on them. They try and make you do what
Oh
they
my
want you to
God.
be, to the point of losing your mind.
But I think that's why I felt like they really went there, like, for all of it, that it felt like the choice to think that she didn't die felt like them not going for it, in the sense that, like, the way she loses her mind, like her mind starts to slip, is so aggressive. Like, she's literally trying to determine if, like, she actually had sex with someone or not, because the delusions got that crazy.
Yeah.
She actually
did I rip the skin off my finger or not?
Did
what the fuck?
The spikes I'm seeing come out of me, like it gets so insane that I think that's why it felt like for her to have, like, stabbed herself, which is crazy. And I actually, like, to me, it is such a great peak to get up to that point that you realize you thought you were killing someone else and you tried to make peace with it, only to realize you really were trying to hurt yourself, whatever. That it felt like the natural ending would have been that she brought it that far, but that she died with a smile on her face, which, by the way, if you've seen Cool Hand Luke, you'll know why there was a little connection in my brain. I was like, Paul Newman has a little smile on his face while he's dying in the back of the car.
I've never seen
No
Cool Hand
spoilers.
Luke.
Just kidding. It's a spoiler. Sorry, Colin. It's been out a long time, but it's such a good movie, so you have to watch it. And Paul Newman is an absolute snack in that film. But also very good. But nonetheless, like, they don't say for certain he's dying in that either, but it's pretty much insinuated with a couple lines of dialogue. Yeah. And he's literally, like, it ends on this little smile on his face in the back seat. And it gave that to me. So that's the part of me that wanted to be like, but it almost hits, whatever. I'm going to let
it
go. It
does. No, I think it does too, because
but maybe
also,
that's fucked up to feel that
like,
way. I don't know. I didn't want her to die.
It's interesting because, like, I haven't seen this film in a little bit. It's been a minute, and I've changed a lot over the past, like, 5-6 years. And even just the time, the person I am now versus when the last time I saw it, there was so much more nuance to the messaging of the movie that I picked up on this time.
I agree.
That, granted, is pretty overt. If it just, I think some of it, me being a man, there's some of the themes of, like, being a woman and stuff that have.
Sorry, rock pipe. I reacted like you said something funny. But I cut the ginger in my ginger tea and it just, like, came from my throat. I'm so sorry. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, my love.
But anyway, there was, so what really stuck with me after watching it this time, well, so much did, but, like, I was really thinking about just, like, the themes and the messages of battling with, like, your shadow self and, like, having a dark night of the soul.
Yes.
And, like, how you have to confront your darkness to reach a different echelon of experience in life. But that, like, sometimes the very act of doing that can be life-threatening and endangering, and that you're doing it to yourself. Like, because some people will confront their darkness and it will kill them. Some people
100%
don't make it through. And how
It's
interesting it is of, like, but then also, like, this idea that, like, all rebirth comes from death and, like, the divine cycle of stuff. So if she does live, it's kind of plays into the whole hero's journey of it all, whereas she went to the darkest point. Now she's going to be literally reborn because she was literally on the brink of death after trying to kill herself. All in the search of trying to be this perfect person and having to realize, like, I'm not perfect. And
I am literally obsessed with your take on this film. I love how much you love this movie, because everything you're saying makes a full ass sense to me.
The messaging in it is, there's a lot. It's great.
but I think the messaging, that the way you're, like, sharing it is so interesting, because I completely agree. I didn't have some of those exact thoughts, but hearing you say it, I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely. I could absolutely see that. Like, it really is. Yeah. That is so well articulated.
Because, like, there's been so many points over the past few years where I had to, like, confront pieces of myself that were giving me deep discomfort and grief and anger. And you do, in a way, have to kill that part of yourself off. But in order to do that, you got to love yourself through it. And in this, it wasn't really from a place of love. It was from a place of fear and wanting to be perfect and wanting to appease everyone else and get the validation that I'm worth it by being what everyone else wants me to be.
100%.
So, like, that's, like, the kind of bittersweet nature of her arc is that it's like this kind of like almost negative arc because
Mhm.
I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
think her life is necessarily better. If she does live, I don't think it's better. Maybe she has more realization, but this girl just went to deep psychosis. Her mind is gone. And so where does she go from there? Maybe it's a long road to build back up, or maybe the new thing is she's going to grapple with horrible delusions the rest of her life.
Well, that's what I mean. And I feel like,
and not everyone makes it out of confronting
No,
their darkness sometimes. And I think it's so easy when you're spiritual and stuff to be like,
yes.
it only goes up. And it does.
No.
Ultimately, everything only goes up.
Sure, but it doesn't
But
change the
sometimes
fact.
it's really, really hard for people.
And 1000%, I experienced horrific OCD for a couple years that like nearly took me out. Like it was truly horrific that I saw this film differently because I was like, although my delusions were never manifesting as me turning into a swan.
Oh, you didn't break your
no.
mom's fingers by slamming the door on her twice?
And watch little pricklies come out of my arms. Nay, that was not my version of hell, but nonetheless, I related to the idea of just how fucked your perception can become when there is different mental issues at play. And for me, it was manifesting as obsessive compulsive disorder that like it was fucking with my perception so much that I literally was struggling at times to determine like what was real and not real. But not to the degree of this, but like on such a smaller scale.
Because it's also so exaggerated.
Of course.
People do experience this kind of psychosis. But
exactly. But it's like, I feel like and for me, it did have to get so bad that I ultimately got the help that I needed and now like don't experience symptoms of it most days at all. Did not ever think that was possible for me. So, but like you said, it had to get so bad so that I could get the help, and the help healing myself ultimately got me to a point where like I'm now able to live without symptoms of that.
Yeah.
Where like with this, it's like, it feels like she's getting to the point where she has to face it. She has to face it, but then all of a sudden she
never
realizes
saw help from like a higher up source. Meaning like a therapist,
it was like a response.
Someone who's there. She was like, I can do it all myself.
She was responding to her environment versus like being like,
because like the director doesn't have her best interest in mind.
No.
The mom doesn't actually have her best interest in mind, because one thing I loved about the movie was it's not in the script, is that when she's doing that final performance, she looks out into the audience and she sees her mom sitting there, and her mom is transfixed in awe, even though she knows her daughter is gone. Like her daughter has just lost it. Her daughter has physically attacked her. Sweet Nina is gone, but she's sitting here watching the performance like, oh my God, look at what I created.
But that's what that nails the point you were saying, which is a lot of times people have to get to a point of like some version of psychosis, and yet they'll be the most adored, where it's like people are obsessed with how much someone can give of themselves, specifically with entertainers, that it's like people get the boundaries get really muddled,
like
where you're
like the best art comes from an artist when they're at their lowest.
And it's like, that's not always true. That's true for some people, but
some
that's
people
not
can
always
transmute
true.
it into that, but like
100%.
Like if you look at like countries where horrible things are happening and people are being so deeply oppressed, you don't necessarily see the greatest art coming from abject
100
horribleness.
Exactly.
But that's also a very different conversation. It's just, I feel like it's so interesting because that is such like a thing with artists of like the tortured artist.
Yeah,
and so much can come from that, but it's coming from a place of survival instead of being in a place where you're thriving and then creating out of abundance.
But nonetheless, the other thing I like to entertain is, as much as we like to have a takeaway from a film, like sometimes a film is just saying something and it's not saying more than that, in the sense that I'm like, we're obviously talking about our interpretations of it, but it's like the movie's not saying any of it. It's just showing you following Nina. We're following Nina.
Well, the movie has a lot to say.
Well, no. I mean, it has a lot to say, but I'm saying
it's a cautionary tale.
100%. But what I mean is like the interpretation being like us.
How we're interpreting it is not necessarily there, but 100%. It's wonderful that it leads to that.
That's exactly. Yeah. 1 billion. But no, I agree. It absolutely says so much. It's just
so good.
Let's
I barely have any script notes as well.
I don't really have.
But which is great because that means we can go through because sometimes we don't even get to go through all our notes, but we can go through every single note.
I literally have almost none, and that is just never me.
Okay, then yours, I can do mine.
I pretty much just said very straightforward action. I felt the script was very straightforward, wasn't really a fun read for me. It felt honestly a bit clinical, and yet it also did a really solid job of putting everything that you needed on the page. I could visualize pretty much all of it, even when it was complex. I just wasn't swept away by it.
Yes.
I said, I think the metaphor of killing yourself for your art is the main takeaway. And I do think that they explored this in a very unique ways, which is why I think so many people love this film when it came out. It's like a trope, and yet it was done in such a unique exploration that like it was so satisfying. That's it.
All very fair. Clinical is the word.
Takeaway.
Mm-hmm. So here are my notes. Well, my first note was that I love how the action was broken up and formatted, because it makes it lets your eye, instead of seeing a bunch of paragraphs on a page, you have a lot of negative space for your eye to like have a breathing room.
Yes.
And then it allows like for someone like me, if you struggle reading, it's really very enjoyable. And I was able to read it very quickly.
It almost doesn't feel like an action heavy film on the page.
Yeah.
Which is a compliment.
And like it is, but it doesn't feel that way, which was my biggest takeaway for it was that like to be a film that has very minimal dialogue, it zooms, the pacing is great. Again, I'm sure if this is not your first episode listening, Script Babies, I'm sure you've heard me say how I love action. I love to know how things are described. And one of those things is like dancing. So many times I've watched this movie and thought, I wonder how they wrote the dancing. Because I always get in my head of like, how specific do you have to be?
Totally.
I get that way with like fight scenes sometimes too. Like, do you have to like call like uppercuts and shit? Like, I don't fucking know fighting terms.
Totally.
And then I get in my head and I just, whatever. But in this, it was a good example that like, no, you don't have to get super technical. And also, if they had gotten really technical, it would have been fucking boring and would have slowed it the fuck down.
You know what? That reminds me, the other thought I had was the read is very approachable in that like, ballet is not a huge interest of mine, and yet I have so much respect for it. It's just not like a huge interest of mine. And if it had been written a different way, I don't know if I really would have gotten through it.
Absolutely.
But because it was so approachable, I didn't feel like I had to be an expert or I wasn't too out of the know.
It also felt like the writer wasn't an expert, so it gave me permission to be like, okay, cool.
But it was good enough that it made me feel like this person knows what they're talking about, but not an expert. Totally.
Yes, where it's like, it wasn't intimidating, where it's like,
at all.
Rondageons and pas de bourrées and blah, blah, blah. Like, I can't. But anyway, so the way they wrote the dancing in the beginning of the movie is very similar to the beginning of the script, but I like what the movie did more. So because it like in the movie, you see like the like wizard thing, like the wizard black swan guy come out, and like you kind of get this like glimpse of what we're gonna see. Like we're going into like a fantasy adjacent kind of scary place. Mm-hmm. Whereas in the script, it's just a description of her at the end before she jumps off of the cliff thing while she's performing, and like you're seeing the ending scene in the beginning. But this is how it's written, how the dancing is written, which I thought was really good and crisp and to the point. It says, the feet begin going up and down on point in time to the music. They move around the black space, performing complex choreography, leaps, twirls, quick, masterful steps. That's all you need.
That's all you need.
And then let the fucking choreographers figure it out when they go to shoot it. There you go.
100%.
Easy fucking peasy. Also on page 1, I enjoyed Nina's character intro. I thought it was interesting because it was so much of this is like, as we've already said, very cut and dry. Mm-hmm. There's no frill, no garnish, no sauce. It's this, it gives it to you. It gives it to you straight raw dog. And that does play in its detriment later on, but whatever. I liked the way this was written. So we come out of that dream sequence, and then here's how we meet Nina. It says, a pair of eyes open. They belong to the same dancer, Nina. Self-conscious and hungry for approval, Nina hides her insecurities behind a sweet, likable facade. She stares at the ceiling, where many pairs of point shoes are nailed. Very small, all the way up to her current size. They testify to how long she has been a ballet dancer. That's all, like, it's so almost rote in a way. Like it's so basic that like it leaves nothing to the imagination, where like my preference would be to have a little bit more flair to it.
A hint.
But I did
Give me a
enjoy that.
nudge.
It kind of, what it did for me, especially in those beginning pages, before it started to grate a little bit, was that it immediately put me in like the indie tone mindset, because it was very like bing bing bop, which like sometimes with indie movies, like the way they're shot and stuff is very like like not a lot of flourish or whatever. And it kind of gave me, it like played into tone in that way. On page 2, I said I love the juxtaposition of the beautiful ballerina with her fucked up feet. It immediately telescopes some of the messaging of the film, that people are willing to sacrifice their well-being to be perfect in their art. And it says, the action says, Nina's bare feet stand on the hardwood floor. Like all ballerinas, she's beautiful and her feet are atrocious, covered in corns, broken blisters, and bunions. I was like, I like that because it was also really visual.
Yeah.
To like, it was so easy to imagine that. And then my next note was that the utilitarian action really helps set the indie tone of the movie. Good example of how formatting can also support tone.
Although you're 100% right, but I feel like I had almost the opposite observation, where
this is early on. It
changed a little bit.
It changed because I didn't feel that way at the end. Actually, the formatting was kind of
style.
It was lacking style and was hindering
to the point that I felt so relieved when the movie started and I saw the look. I literally took a deep breath. I was like, "Oh, I can lean into this now."
You're totally right, because that is it is contradictory, because in the beginning it was setting that up, but ultimately it did not work necessarily.
Like, let's put it this way: it speaks to the magic of trusting, I've said this a million times, of trusting where your film is supposed to go and who's supposed to help you make it. Because the fact that like Darren Aronofsky, I can't say his fucking name today, if he interpreted what he did through reading that script and was able to articulate it to his cinematographer, who was able to bring it to life that way, like that to me was the best possible lens that could have been put on that script. Because the script is good, but the movie is incredible. True. Where like it took the right lens being in place on top of that. Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And that isn't on the page. And I think that's why you and I both were a little bummed, is because it's like the movie has so much feel. You feel it's got such a style. And so that it is almost kind of like shocking when the script doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point, actually. My next one was page 5. I said, there's so many moments in the first 5 pages that show us the status quo and its underbelly. Dedication and the destruction it causes. Her feet. Beauty, but also an eating disorder. Friendship and adoration, but also jealousy and resentment with Nina and Beth. Such a great example of how to seamlessly weave in the themes of your story without hitting people over the head with it. One example I wrote was, so in the script, if you've seen the movie, you know that Nina just looks up to Beth. Beth is, what's her face's character? What's her name? Winona Ryder's character. So if you've seen the movie, you know that they're not friends. Mm-mm. They're not cordial. Even like Nina's nice to her, but Beth is a fucking bitch to her.
Yeah, she's a bitch.
In the script, they're like friends. Yeah. They're like Nina's like only friend at the ballet company is Beth.
Yep.
And she looks up to her and she adores her because Beth is like this prima ballerina, but she's also aging. And so you see this dichotomy of like adoring someone, but also being really jealous of them. And that kind of starts to play now. Like I'm placing this upon my perception of it back in the past, of like realizing now that actually kind of plays into the idea of, is Nina her friend just to help herself out? Or is Nina like actually want to be her friend? Because when you see how she goes about, like she starts to really cut in front of Nina.
Oh yeah.
Of
Beth as soon as she can. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe it's,
but I do think it begs that question where it's like, what each person, what are you willing to do to get what you want in the fucked up way?
Yeah.
Not in like the gorgeous spiritual way, like, but instead like the what are you gonna do no matter how bad it is to get what you want? Yeah. And it's like
the most timid people are, can be the little like.
But I think they even allude that Beth had a fucked up experience too. Like Beth's not in good health. Like she's not well. So I think it's also articulating that this isn't a unique experience either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. The action that I wrote to make that point was, it's on page 5. It says, so Beth and Nina like see each other and they're chitty chatting like, hey girl, how are you? Oh my God. And then they start walking into like the dance studio or whatever. And then there's like adoring fans outside waiting for Beth. And they like want to talk to Beth. And so Beth stays there and Nina's like, okay, well, I'll see you inside. And this is the action right after that. It says, Beth either doesn't hear her or pretends not to. Nina's smile fades. She watches with a hint of jealousy as Beth gracefully signs autographs. Nina turns away and disappears inside the building alone. So you see this glimpse that like, you are jealous. But also, it's also placed upon them. They're kind of like pitted against each other with this fuck ass director.
Tomas.
And then my next thing was like also on page 5, like the dialogue's not great, which we've already talked about. But however, the minimal dialogue, which was interesting, minimal dialogue and having more action played into the story's favor in this because the dialogue wasn't great and the action was so well formatted that it didn't slow you down.
True.
So it made it easier to just get through it, for lack of a better way of saying that.
True.
Page 7, I said I love the director's entrance and character description, and there's a use of parenthetical here that I really liked.
Ooh. Again,
all formatting stuff, because read this for formatting, honestly.
Absolutely.
Not necessarily formatting, but not really the writer's voice. I don't know what else the writer's written. I think I looked his IMDb up. He's only been a couple other things, but like, yeah, I don't know if there's much of a voice here. There's a perspective, but not a voice.
Absolutely.
But anyway, when we first see him, it says, Nina looks towards the door and sees the intense and brooding director of the company, Korolevna. Then in parenthetical, it says, Yevna to his friends, has entered the space. He has the unshaven, unkempt look of an artist, magnetic and intimidating. I did enjoy that. I don't utilize parenthetical like that. And like, there's been a few scripts now where I love it, where it's like a little aside, a little anecdote about a character where I'm like, it makes me feel like,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
I'm a part of this.
Because it's right up on the edge, right? We talked about this last episode where it's like, it's not unfair. You're not learning something that you could never possibly ever know. It's just typically an emotional thing that still gives off a visual.
Yes.
There's still more visual given in it, even though it does feel like extra sauce or a little zhuzh.
It does.
It's an art form.
On page 11, I really enjoyed how the dialogue and action were both crafted to reinforce the idea of manipulation and psychological torture that the ballet world places upon its dancers. Mm-hmm. I didn't write the action out, but this is an exchange between the director and Nina. He looks at her and he says, "Are you scared?" And Nina says, "I'm sorry, and he cuts her off and goes, "Shh, don't be sorry. Fear is good. It's a sign of desire." And I'm like, ugh. But like it plays into this whole thing of like him grooming her to think me being afraid, me being in this state of fight or flight is a good thing because it means I'm taking this seriously and I care, which that is like so fucking like male manipulator shit to say. And that didn't make it to the movie, but I did enjoy that.
But they find plenty of ways to make him.
They did it so much better in the movie.
They really did. They really did.
He's so skeezy. Also, there's like, did you notice of course you noticed, you read it. There is like a not rape scene.
Yes.
In the script that I'm glad didn't make it to the movie because I mean it feels icky reading it. There's a point to it, but like the director is trying to loosen up Nina and she's seeking his approval so much that he starts to force himself upon her and then she doesn't like it, but then she ultimately says like fuck me, but it felt really disingenuous because she just wanted to get the part.
Yeah.
And to be wanted by him and to be validated by him. And that was
icky. Yeah. I thought that the choice to instead have the kiss scene be so when he was like, open your mouth. Oh God, he kept being like, open your mouth.
Like, that's me seducing you. Now you have to do it to me. I was like, fuck. Like,
you're like, it was
so manipulative and so simple to the point. Like,
and they didn't have to show something awful like her essentially being like the message of him just being so creepy and and
then when he's
rapey.
walking away, she's like, wait,
awful.
like she wants him to continue.
Yeah.
And it's like, it just plays in
Or
that
she thinks
desperation on
there's
her
something-
part and that manipulation on his part. And like, now she's getting the validation she wanted from him. Like, ooh.
Mhm.
And
When she first bites him, though, it's one of my favorite parts of the movie because it further sets the tone of the film where you go, like, the script was missing that as well. It's like she
slaps him in the script. He kisses her and then she kisses back, but then she slaps him
in the way that
it's also out of character for her.
But
like Nina just kind of being like and taking it and walking away is like,
well, but also her biting is so fucking weird that it's the first sign of like something is amiss.
Ew.
It feels like the first time you're really like, oh, something's taking over.
So you're biting hard enough to draw blood.
Yeah.
On page 17, I'm glad this didn't make it to the movie because it would have been too on the nose. But for the script, with a script that has not a lot of embellishment in it, there's a few moments that kind of gave that to me. And I think that's why I wrote this down because like, I just think it's fun for the reader for this. So obviously the writer builds in a lot of the theming and messaging early on and kind of shows us like what he's trying to say about this world. And then there's a moment where after the director has the 4 girls that he selects, which is such a fucked up way of like, which is in the script where he walks through the crowd and he taps the people that he's actually going to tell to go. Mm-hmm. And the people that he didn't tap was only like 4 people.
So fucked, but it was a powerful moment.
Yeah. Cause I mean, it works. It also plays into like, he plays dirty.
Yes,
and he wants these people to stay on their toes and to be vying for his attention and adoration. And it's gross. But anyway, in the script, after they do the rehearsal for him, Nina's rehearsal gets flubbed by Lily, and then she's going home, and we have this moment with Nina going to the subway before she goes home, and 3 different things happen in quick succession that all are symbolic, very on the nose, symbolically, but reading it in the script, again, this is page 17 before I started to get a little bored, I thought it really worked because it served to execute the vision and gave a little bit more of tone to the story and helped set us up so we didn't forget, like, these are the themes that we're playing with here, which I did think, oddly, in other scripts, I don't think this would work, but it kind of did in this one. But like, so she first sees this guy performing with these dolls, and there's like these mechanical dolls that are dancing with these smiles on their face.
Right.
And that's very symbolic because, like just smile and look pretty and dance.
Yeah.
And it even says in the action, it says like they couldn't stop dancing even if they wanted to.
Yeah.
And like he's controlling them. It's a man controlling them. Then after that, she sees these 2 rats fighting to the death over a scrap of food. God. Like the dancers fighting for the role. And then she sees this overweight woman who calls her fat because she has an eating disorder. And that's the other theme that we're playing into here. Like men dominating women and manipulating them, women being pitted against each other, for something that they all want. And then, obviously body image and
size,
eating disorder. I thought that worked well for a script that gave you not much in that department.
Agreed.
But in general, it does, out of context, seems very cheesy. Now this next part I really, really enjoyed. I loved the way this action was written. It is when Nina is practicing spinning in her bedroom. And the sound design in the movie of this part makes so much of the sound design makes me want to vomit and scream. But it's this, so if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about in the beginning where she's like dancing spinning in front of the mirror, spin after spin after spin, and then crack, her big toenail cracks. I did love the way this is written, so I'm going to read it for you guys. So it's page 18. It says, interior, Nina's bedroom night. Unsettled, Nina sits on her bed and opens an antique music box. A plastic ballerina pops up and begins twirling to tinny music. It's her most prized possession, and the familiar music comforts her. She stares at the twirling ballerina and then up at her reflection in the mirror attached under the lid. She places the open music box on her nightstand. She finds her point shoes and puts them on. She finishes, flexes her foot, and stretches. She stands on a small patch of hardwood floor and does a single spin, testing the waters. She spins again, then a double, then a triple. Each spin is punctuated by a sharp jab of her left foot into the floor. She jabs it down a 4th time, hard. Nina, ow, damn it. She removes her shoe and unwraps her foot. Her big toenail is split oozing blood. Nina grimaces. She breathes through the pain and puts her shoe back on. She stands, takes a couple breaths, and starts spinning again.
No!
First, a little unsure, self-conscious. Her toe jabs into the floor. She winces with a little pain, but keeps pushing. Her face grows more determined, focused. 20, 21, 22 spins. Thwack, thwack, thwack. She starts to look powerful, willing herself to succeed this time. At the end of the 30-second spin, Nina jabs her foot down hard. She's done it. A huge smile erupts on her face. Nina looks at herself in the mirror, glazed in sweat. A slight smile of satisfaction. She lies down on her bed and stares at the music box. The plastic ballerina spins and spins, hypnotizing her to sleep.
You know what? That's probably the most zhuzh of the whole thing, I feel, in the best way. You're right. There, you know what? I feel bad, actually. There's not nothing in this. There is. It's just that it's not quite enough to make you go on the same feeling journey that you do with the movie. But
agreed.
But you're right. You've given good examples where like there is a little something there. It just feels.
Well, that was page 17.
Yeah.
My next note is 37. Then my last note's 110.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah. So there you go.
It's good in the I liked it in the beginning, but then like there's so much of the same that you just kind of read through the rest of it, especially when you know the movie.
Yeah.
But I did like that we saw, because the significance of the number of spins is that in the ultimate scene of the Black Swan, she does all these spins and it's 32 spins. And it's like this really difficult thing for ballerinas to do or whatever. And so I love the idea that like we see that ruthless side of Nina come through where she's so self-deprecating. She's willing to, harm herself to be perfect for this role and for this man. Yep. And like the idea that you break your toe, put your shoes back on, then keep spinning on the broken toe.
Yeah, horrendous. But it's like the beginning of you learning that she only really gets to a certain point by hurting herself deeply.
But like where the movie really shone was that you didn't have to have that moment to really signal that part of Nina. You see it build naturally and you see her start to like, so in one thing I really noticed from the script versus the screen is that, Nina in the movie has a more rebellious, curious nature to her, where she's like really pushing the boundaries and pushing against her mom's overbearing
rule. It's more interesting to watch.
It is so much more interesting.
Her arc in the script is really, it feels smaller in the sense that like,
it does. And
it's also a little bit less compelling. Like for instance, the decision to have her and her mom actually be close.
Oh my God, I forgot that. In the script, you don't know if it's her mom
boring.
or her grandma.
No, and in a way where you're like, there leaves a little mystery and then you learn towards the end it's her mom. But it's like, it's so boring. It's like,
she's like really cold to her. Really they don't really talk. That I totally forgot. Yes.
Immediately when they cut to that scene and her little, Natalie Portman's little like smiling face towards her mom and they have this like sweet moment and you get immediately there's something a little off here. But once again, I felt so comforted, like, oh, this is going to be so much more interesting to watch through the lens of like a mother and daughter who are really close, not in a healthy way, but like that because it added to the pressure that Nina felt in a way that I found was more interesting. It shows
you why she is the girl that she is right now. She's so infantilized. She's still living in a room that's all pink and frilly with her fucking childhood dolls all around.
Mentally sound.
Her mom's insane and is living out her dreams vicariously through her daughter. And like,
this is a flash forward, but when the paintings,
that's screaming stuff.
Horrific.
You know what's great is when the first time you see the paintings, there's one painting that's eyes move, and if you don't, if you like blink, you'll miss it. But you can see Nina like catches it. You know what scene fucks me up every single time?
Which one?
So many of them. The body horror in the movie is way better than the script. There's so many moments, but like. Obviously, the hangnail scene's atrocious, disgusting, because it's still to this day, I get so many of those like little skin things. Mm-hmm. But when the mom notices the rash on her back and she's like, oh, the rash is back. She's like, Mom, no. And she brings her in and starts clipping her nails. Like the mom, like having these kind of like OCD tendencies of her own of like, she sees like, oh no, this is jeopardizing Nina's chance and Nina's going to ruin this for herself. And I have to protect Nina. I have to protect her. And for her first instinct to be to like, make sure her nails are trimmed and proper and pretty. And then but like the shots are so close.
I know. And the sound.
She uses those teeny tiny like scissors,
baby scissors. But I think that's part of it is like she's still sees her daughter as like this literal, like in a way that is completely inappropriate and disgusting.
Oh wait,
and
so that you
unacceptable.
use those on babies?
I'm pretty certain the ones she's
That-
using are the little.
I
Not,
love
but I
that
think
because
so.
that really plays into the infantilization even more.
Because babies now I'm second guessing, but baby ones are really small and whatever.
What do you think? So I've thought this since I watched the movie. Every time I watch it, I always wonder: is Lily a figment of her imagination? Full stop, or are there just moments where she is? Because I can't. Obviously, there's moments where she's a figment of her imagination, like when she goes home and fucks her, and that's not real, or like the times when she sees her like, you know, fucking the director and stuff towards the end when she's starting to lose her mind and he turns into like
It's like,
the
we don't
Swan
know.
thing. I think Lily might be just a figment of her imagination
I
the
love that.
entire time, and it's the representation. Clearly, this is. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to parse this through, but like she's clearly the representation of like embrace sexuality and like easygoingness. That is the Black Swan version of Nina, and it's what she can't be and what she's striving towards, you know, right in front of her. But I always wonder.
That's so interesting. I kind of love that. I'm totally fine to interpret it that way. I think the way that I saw it was probably like, this is a real girl there, but she's completely told a story about who this person is. Like, has taken 2 points of data and fully made up all these narratives. And that like the only time she actually talked to her was like twice. And then like she was just filling in all this shit with her. Granted, I also think it's fun to entertain that like Lily does have it out for her 100%. That's
Yeah.
also like fun to entertain. Where you're like, she's real. She has I even
'Cause
thought
all
like,
these
is there a
dynamics are
version where
real.
she does fuck her?
Like, yeah. Like
And
these dynamics
she's the
are
one lying to
placed
her.
on women, but then there's also times when they're generated by them. And it's interesting.
Like I literally had the thought when it cuts to Mila Kunis after and she's like, unless your name's Jerry and blah, blah. And then she's like, oh, did you have a little Leslie dream of me? There's a part of me that was like, I very much know how I think I'm meant to interpret this, but it is fun to actually believe she did do that and then is
And
gaslighting.
she's totally fucking
like,
with her. And did she
like,
ask the
that's
guy to
just
drop her?
crazy.
Like, did she ask the guy to drop her so she could be, and then she starts fucking Tomas so she can be the swing or the alternate or
I
whatever?
just love that they don't answer it. I love that it's all, because they really let it be both. They show things that you do ultimately know, like she didn't kill her, so we know that.
Yeah. That reveals, I can't get over it.
Good.
Also, all of this is in the script, but it's just executed so much better and it's more nuanced in the movie.
But in the script, she kills her double, not Lily.
But Lily is the double. That's one thing that I thought was interesting that like I didn't get confused.
I feel like
where,
was
like,
the only thing that
Lily,
didn't translate amazingly.
It didn't translate amazingly, no, but it still didn't necessarily confuse me because like they had spent enough time earlier in the script making sure you knew that Lily so in the script babies, you have Lily's character and then you have if you've seen the movie, it happens in the movie too, where Nina keeps seeing like a doppelganger of herself and she keeps mistaking people as the doppelganger and she keeps then she starts mistaking Lily as this doppelganger. And sometimes she sees Lily, sometimes she sees herself. And again, plays into that whole like, you know, what
like
she
when
wants
they're
to
having
be,
sex, she's seeing herself.
Exactly. In the script, they do a version of this where you have Lily, but then they make it obvious that like they have Lily and they have a character they say the double.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, the evil twin doppelganger. And so there were moments where they make sure you know Lily is now being seen as the double in Nina's mind. But then about 3/4 of the way through the script, there's this whole sequence where it's just the double. And they never say if it's Lily or not. But then you go back to it when she goes back to see that, you know, it's not Lily that's dead in the thing. Yeah. And you realize that the Lily was the double. Yeah,
but it wasn't
executed perfectly.
She has a whole other scene with the double in this screenplay too, where they like get into a fight and it took me out. And that I liked that
There's so much that wasn't necessary.
I liked the movie's interpretation of it better. It just felt like in the script, they were kind of insinuating it was Lily, but they were also saying the double, and then they would articulate when it would look like her, and then when it whatever, and that they never say Lily. They just say the double and then her, Nina. That like in the movie, the visual of seeing it be Lily makes you believe all the more that she did kill her, because you're like, you kind of believe it. If we're believing anything about this with Lily, it feels like maybe she would do this.
That's the whole reveal. Like it's so wonderful and delicious because they do such. It's one of the most perfect examples of an unreliable narrator that you can find. Like the movie specifically.
Yep.
Because I remember the first time watching it, I was 20. It came out in 2010. But like, I was so shocked that she was the one that, like, you kind of suspect it that she's doing this to herself. But when you ultimately see that she stabbed herself and that Mila Kunis isn't in that closet. And like, that was actually like when she comes to the door and she's like, congratulations. Like, I know things got weird between us, but whatever. And then Natalie having the realization that like,
you're
how can
alive.
You be there, bitch? I just killed you.
Yep.
Like, it's
and then you see relief, but then you see, oh my God, but I hurt myself. You see fear, then you see confidence, and then like peace, like an absolute tranquility.
Yeah. Look at the performance I just gave, and look at what performance I'm going to get from this. And like, she's about to go play the Swan, like leaping to her death as she is there, sitting there dying. And it's like, she's so proud of herself in a way that she's gotten to this point, and it's that fucked up kind of pride because she's been so manipulated and like placed into this moment. I
love that Lily comes in way later in the script, whereas in the movie she's almost immediately, which I really preferred.
Everything they changed in that movie was better. Every decision is better in the movie.
One of Tomas's lines I actually loved perfect because I was like, wait, this is what I thought was what made that character so great though, is that they did have him say a lot of things that were like gorgeous, like gorgeously worded, but like an absolute maniac, chauvinistic piece of shit. But like, for instance, perfection is not just about control, it's also about letting go. I was like, they gave him enough little gems of those to sprinkle in that you still hated him, but you understood why these women would fall under his spell because it was like coded as him acting
like a mentor. But he's ultimately just doing this to get the best performance so that he can be praised as the director.
And so he can fuck these women and all this awful shit.
Yeah.
But I just loved that line of dialogue.
Yeah.
I was like, ooh.
I have a question for you. So you know when they're at the gala and Nina goes to the bathroom, we have the fingernail scene and then she's leaving the bathroom and Mila Kunis is like, oh, hi. She's walking to the bathroom and she's leaving. Mila Kunis takes off her panties and then sits in the sink. Does she piss in the sink?
I had the same question. My note, Colin, is it says, does Lily take off her underwear in the bathroom and then sit in the sink? LOL, what the fuck?
I said, do we think Mila Kunis peed in the bathroom sink at the gala? Question mark, question mark, question mark.
I need answers because there's no interesting. No, it is interesting, but not in a good way. Why does she go, I'm going to burst or whatever, and then she comes in and just takes her panties off?
I think it's supposed to be that she pees in the sink because she's just so free and weird and quirky and
If that's true, I hate that choice.
It's wild. It's wild. Here's another question I have for you. The guy, this script, babies, this moment is not in the script. And it's a moment in the screenplay that in the movie that I don't love so much. It's always really weirded me out, but that's the point of it. When she's on the subway riding home and the old man starts making masturbation noises at her and kissing at her. Do we think he is a figment of her imagination as well?
I don't. But
I feel like I do because she just has explored her own sexuality for the first time.
Oh,
and she's going home and this guy is taunting her with masturbating sounds when her assignment was go home and touch yourself. And like, is this her projecting her own internalized shame of sexuality upon herself again? That's what I love about this because she's so unreliable. So much of this does take place in her head.
I love
and we don't know what to believe or trust.
perspective.
Where I'm like, this time watching again, I was like, I always thought he's just a weird pervert on a train. But this time I was like, wait, is he even real? Because so much of what Nina sees is her own self-hatred and stuff being shoved down her throat by herself.
Very interesting. I think my interpretation, just being a woman in the world, and I feel like everyone I know has seen a man do that, just made me go like, that's true. Real. Like no part of me even considered it could be a figment because I was just like, God, that's real.
So I just had the most male take.
No, but it's so much more interesting. That's a lot more interesting.
Don't you wish all those times were just figments of your imagination?
Yeah. Do you know, it took me longer than I thought to recover from... My mom was driving me to a producer session. And we were on the freeway and looked over and a dude was masturbating and staring at me. And I really thought that there would be a version of me that would be like, oh my God, that's so gross, and like never think about it again. It fucked with me. And weirdly, before I went in to go do this session, I was like so stoked about the character. I was like so in it. And it just literally fucked with me because the dude made a point to make sure I could see I was looking at him. And it was just weird because I remember
fucking violation. It's disgusting.
Yeah, I remember just feeling like really fucking weird for like a day, and then like got over it. But I still like whenever I remember it, I'm like, what an awful, icky thing that just happened. But I remember it just like affected me more than I thought it would. But anyway, that's also very different than
all that to say. It's probably just a perv on the train, most likely. In the real world, it would be just a fucking perv on the train.
Your interpretation was more interesting.
I have thought this since the moment I saw it, and I still think this to this day. The scene where they take E and they're in a club is the best representation of what it looks like and feels like to be on E that I've ever seen put on film.
I need you to see Baby Girl and then tell me if you think, because that was one of my favorite scenes. I've never been on ecstasy, so I don't know. But that scene in Baby Girl was one of my favorites. It's a really good club scene. Like it made me feel like I was in a club and on a little something, and like it was one of my favorite scenes. So I really want you to see it now because I feel like if you feel that way, because you know what? I liked this one, but it made me go like, oh, I really liked that one in Baby Girl.
Ooh.
So you need to see that. But anyway, I agree. It's good. It's good.
I do think one of my notes was that overall, I think we've already said this before, but just to pinpoint it, it says the movie does a better job at demonstrating how a man in power will push vulnerable women to their brink in order to best service his agenda. The sexual and gender politics are a lot sharper and more nuanced in the film. And for a film that was written and made all by men,
agreed.
Like in all the big credits I've seen, it's all been men. That, but also to hear that he did that to them, that Aronofsky did that to them on set makes me,
obviously it wasn't as bad, but it's just like,
I mean, not as bad in like what he's doing, but like the sentiment of it is gross and weird and interesting that's like so meta that like you're making a film, you know.
But I also think it's because the movie's not ultimately telling you it's a bad thing.
You know,
sorry. That was a little bit my takeaway is I don't think this movie is trying to tell you if it's right or wrong. It's just showing you a version.
Is
that fucked? That's how I feel about it.
No, that's not fucked. That is a read.
That's just that's just how I interpret it. Every time, both times I saw it.
You've only seen it twice?
Yeah.
Interesting.
But I really loved it when I saw it.
Yeah, I mean, it's wonderful.
I just, for a while, wasn't a person who rewatched movies a lot. That I do all the time now. But for some reason, when I was younger, I didn't. Tomas telling her to touch herself. Oh my God.
And then when she does and she looks over and her mother is asleep in the chair.
Her reaction
was another great way to remind you that the mother's overbearing, ever present.
It's
wild. She's omnipresent in this girl's life.
Truly.
She can't even have one fucking moment to herself.
Truly, but it's like almost, it's like one of the only almost funny moments in it where it's like her reaction is like, oh my God.
Because he's like, when he asked her like, are you a virgin? She's like, no, she is.
Oh yeah,
she's 100%
she's a virgin. Yes, yes.
What
was I gonna say? Okay, so this actually plays into one of my my daddy. Wait, is it my do or my downs? I was gonna get into the choice they made for Beth and Nina's relationship to be so different. I felt like that, and then the difference in Nina's relationship with her mom. Those to me were two examples of really smart changes to make in characters to make them more interesting.
Yeah.
To me, the lesson with Beth was more Beth was not better. In the script, there's more Beth, and the script is not better for it.
It's not.
It's actually one too many stories. It's like Beth needs to service Nina in the film, and in the script, there's too much Beth. It's like for her to be kind of like not a main, but a main.
Yeah.
And yet she's just only ever the same thing, which is like mad. And then at the very end,
just
she
a
comes to apologize.
representation of jealousy.
Totally. But in a way where like the movie dips just enough into it to really accent the rest of the story. Whereas in the script, it starts to take away from it.
And like in the movie, it highlights her whole obsession with Beth just highlights, you know, her obsessive nature and
Yeah.
her desperate desire to be like her, to the point
Yeah.
where she steals her things and is wearing her earrings around like a crazy person.
Yeah.
She puts on her lipstick when she goes to seduce Thomas.
So, yeah. Like,
But like, it's great
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it is so real.
yeah.
And the relationship with the mom, and like the exploring
and
these
so-
the different types of relationships between women.
100%. And so it made me like the daddy
Not
do
the healthy ones, but
the daddy do of it was like, allow yourself to have a draft where you go through and go like, is there a more interesting version of this character when it is supporting characters? Because the mom character, that question had to have been asked for that one, because that mom character went from being like so one-dimensional, so uninteresting, and added nothing other than just showing
Truly
that
nothing.
Nina was more alienated,
she
but
actually
you
could
didn't
have
need it.
not been in it at all.
Whereas in this, the mom and daughter's relationship informed the story so much.
Yeah.
And I found myself both sympathizing with Nina differently, because I was like, oh, she felt a different pressure, which was, I'm living under this pressure of like having to live out my mom's dream, but she kind of hates me for it, but she's obsessed with me for it. And like all these freaking things that were so much more interesting to explore than just having a very cold mother.
Yeah.
And so to me, to cut forward for a sec, the daddy do was like, give yourself a draft where you just go through and go like, is there a version of this character that's slightly more interesting and brings more out of the other lead characters?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? I was
Yes.
like, oh, because that was to me
That's a great
stark.
note.
It was a stark difference.
It was. I'll go ahead and read my last note that I have for the script, because it involves reading some from the script. So on page 110, we get to the point where Nina starts to think she's transforming into a swan. And I liked the way that it was written. So I'm going to enter it. I'm actually entering it on page 109. If you're going to read the script, I'm starting at in the middle where it says hallway. It says, so Nina walks into the hallway, and it says, Nina exits her mother's room and runs through the apartment. She enters her bedroom, closes and locks the door behind her. Nina sees her reflection in the vanity mirror. She grabs the nearest heavy object, her music box, and hurls it at the glass. The mirror spiderwebs with cracks. She stares at her fragmented reflection for a moment before noticing the half-open music box laying on the ground, emitting a broken, pathetic song. She picks the wooden box from the ground, worried. She discovers that the ballerina has been snapped off and only a single amputated leg remains attached to the base. It spins around morbidly. Unnerved, Nina suddenly feels a sharp, painful sensation on her back, causing her to drop the box back onto the floor. She reaches towards the pain on her shoulder blade, but can't get to the source through her clothing. She hastily pulls off her shirt, reaches for her shoulder, and touches it. Feeling something, she races from her room, across the hall, and into the bathroom. She flicks on the light and runs to the mirror. Both her arms and shoulders are fully covered with the rash. Frantic, she opens the medicine cabinet and retrieves some tweezers, jabs them into one of the bumps on her right shoulder blade, and tries to pluck out the strange spines. But it's too deeply embedded in the pain, and the pain is too great. She winces and drops the tweezers, clanking into the sink. She retrieves a pair of scissors from the cabinet, contorts to reach behind her back. A trickle of blood flows from the wound down her back and legs. She takes hold of the growth and snips with her other hand. She looks at the cut object held in her fingers, a sharp, tiny black spine like that of a sea urchin. She starts to feel the pain, the weird sensation spread over her body. She looks down at her arms. Something moves underneath the rash-covered skin, as though similar tiny points are trying to poke through. She rubs at her skin, trying to make it stop. She slams the medicine cabinet shut to see her reflection. In it, her face and neck stretch and morph, becoming swan-like. She screams and stabs the scissors at the monster, smashed to black. I enjoyed that.
Me too.
Me personally, I would have added a lot more flair there, but
it gets the job done.
It gets the job done, and it really, while I would have gone a little bit further with it personally, it did set up the visuals to be taken to like all those visuals are there in the movie, but just done in a much more visceral and like disgusting, disturbing way.
Totally.
I
did prefer the visual choices they made for the weird stuff appearing on her body versus in the script it's mainly just a rash. Now,
Yeah.
granted, I think for a script you can only get so far. I feel like I understand why why it was a rash for the script, but like the way it manifests in the film, I think was so much more interesting.
Yeah, it's like her
and
tit
also
for
it felt
scratching.
like it was really hard to believe that how often she had a bare back that they would ever not notice this horrific.
Then in the script, the
rash.
costumer is like, "This rash is disgusting. You need to go get
see
this
a
looked at."
doctor. Yeah, you need to go to urgent care or whatever. It's like, I was like, please God. And so I liked that it was like a different thing. But yeah, no, I agree that it was a part that was, I enjoyed the way it was written as well. I agree. Pop. I loved the change where Nina, it's subtle, but where is it Tomas or Toma? Toma. Where in the film, she says to Toma, I'm going on. Like Lily's like, no, like he's like, I already told her. And she's like, no.
Have you announced it?
Yeah, have you announced it? Because she's like, because you guys can't take any more embarrassment after Beth. So I'm going on. I loved that they gave her an active choice versus in the script. She still is like,
true. Yes.
He ends up saying to her, we can't have more embarrassment. So I guess you can go on. Whereas like, I loved that in the movie. She's so much more active because it speaks to her, the transition that's been made.
She's her Black Swan now.
She is her Black Swan now.
And like,
so I really liked that shift. It was small, but I really, again,
because like you really see her like, because she physically abuses her mother, breaks her mother's hand. And then when the mom won't let her out of the room, she grabs her mom's injured hand, squeezes it to then get her up to get the thing. Like she's Black Swan now. And like to have her sit down. But then like in that moment too, I loved that. So Nina is like, yeah, no, I'm going on. Like you haven't announced it yet. You can't, you don't need more embarrassment. I'm doing this. And the smug fucking look of satisfaction that Tomas has on his face plays into that thing of like, he's so fucking satisfied. He's like, fuck yeah, I've broken this girl to the point where this is going to be good. Yep. And it's like,
and that whole like justification of like, you know, it'll be her best then because she's snapped. I will say I loved the shot in the film when Nina is the Black Swan and she does, it's not it's the opposite of it. She like puts her arms up like this and you see as the audience that her arms are bare, but the reflection has the wings. Because not only is that so visually cool, again, it made me think like for me of when I experienced horrific OCD where like to me, it immediately showed two realities being viewed through this one thing where it's like, depending on who you were in the moment, she was seeing her own, like she was seeing those feathers, but the audience was seeing her bare skin. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just thought that it was, not only was it a cool visual, it furthered the messaging of just like this two realities psychosis type thing that was just happened to be visually very cool to see. Like, I just thought like, ooh, that said a lot with that one thing.
I love that moment too, because that's also a moment that when I watched it, I was wondering like, is that part of the stage design? Did they design the lighting that way to show that? Or is that just like, again, it's like these open-ended questions of like.
And I love a movie that's like brave enough to be like, yeah, there's going to be some open-ended ones, gang. That's what makes it so, you don't have to answer everything, baby, but you do have to answer a lot.
So my take about the whole, like, again, I'm not saying that you were only saying that it's this one take, but the being awful for your art and thinking you have to like break yourself down for it. In this, where I think the nuances is that I don't think Nina, left to her own devices, thinks that. I think Nina has been taught that to succeed in ballet and succeed in this world, to see how the other women have done it, they've allowed themselves to be manipulated and told what to do and pitted against each other and to be so cutthroat that the choice is, I want to be perfect and I want to be a people pleaser. So I'm willing to do whatever that takes, even if it means destroying myself and destroying my body. And so like, and like, I don't know. I was going to say, I don't know if she glorifies that, but actually I think she does, because she's been gaslit into thinking that to have such little disregard for yourself actually means you have the highest regard for yourself.
Think but again, interpretation. My takeaway from it is that she truly does feel it was worth it. Whatever it took for me to get here was worth it.
And in the movie, they don't mince that, because she's elated as she's laying there dying.
And
it was perfect.
And
I felt perfect.
And she goes and performs after she thinks she killed someone.
And and the crowd is cheering her on. People are like, that was amazing. You're incredible. You've done it. You've made it. And she's fucking killed herself in front of these people. And it wasn't good enough until you're fucking killing yourself in front of people. And it's so true with this industry. Like it just makes me think of Britney Spears, like, and how we know that, like, they made her go on tour when she was at the worst part of her mental health crisis. Like, it's insane what this industry does to people.
It's true.
And like,
you have to be okay with being a little bit misunderstood and a little bit disliked, I think, in order to be a healthy, functioning person in the industry.
Chapel Roan, baby.
Like, you just have to be willing
saying
to,
it for all of us.
Like, you just, to some, because woof. Because woof.
Woof. Well.
Woof. Okay, should we get to Daddies?
Hey,
my daddy do's are pretty boring, I feel like, but be clear in your vision, especially for a film that does have horror elements that can be, and visual effects that can be hard to follow. The script, if nothing else, was so clear in its concise vision.
Yeah.
Leave room for what a cinematographer and a director can do. The way it was shot brought so much to this story for me. Like, I honestly want to say it did 50% of the work. Like,
and in that way, the script was a total blank blank slate for artistic vision.
Which is incredible, by the way. That's why, like, I couldn't even give it like a low rating, because I'm like, this document inspired what the movie became. And how can you be anything other than like inspired by that?
Yeah.
That, you know what I mean? That, oh my God. Like, I just was truly like.
Also, dare I say, gives me hope.
Yes, gives me hope as well.
Because it was not a bad. It's not a bad script. It's just a little boring, but it led to one of the best movies ever. Truly.
So that does kind of take you back to the thing we always say, which is like, sometimes you have to trust that the script is what it needs to be for it to get made, knowing that most movies are not identical replicas of the script. There's usually some changes, some way less than others. Some movies are very similar, but like. Yeah. You got it. Part of the vision has to be that you're collaborating with people who have the highest good in mind, because fuck, man, it's so beautiful. My last one is, do consider what the most interesting take on a character could be, especially when doing rewrites and supporting characters. There's so much more interesting in the film. They're all so much more interesting in the film versus the script. I already said that, but I just really, that was a takeaway for me, where I was like, oh, so smart to cut Beth down. We don't need so much Beth, and so smart to make the mom relationship different. Some of Lily and Nina were different. Just the things that they did differently were just infinitely more interesting to me. So
it was.
Those are my do's. Those are my do's.
Here's my daddy do. A daddy do, and I'm on one. Daddy do. Format heavy action to be more easily readable. Ooh. This is a very contained story with minimal dialogue and a lot of action. And if the action had not been formatted into small, easily readable chunks, honestly, the reading experience could have been a bit of a slog and would have negatively affected the impact of the storytelling. Read this script to see a great example of how to write lots of action in a way that doesn't impede the pacing. But let me amend that by saying add a little bit more flair, because the formatting of it's really nice and makes it move. But like, just like give me a little bit more flavor for my own personal taste. Daddy do number 2. Daddy do weave your themes into the action. There's a few moments where the writer added in pretty obvious symbolic touches into the script that were there to reinforce the themes and messages of the story. However, the beauty here is in the way that the writer was able to add these elements into the action without it being glaringly distracting. See my examples from page 5 for reference.
Points were made. They were right.
Number 3. Daddy do play with psychosis in an accessible way. This film heavily relies on Nina being an unreliable narrator, and so much of what she thinks she's experiencing is called into question for herself and the reader, but it never seems confusing, which I think is a triumph. There's a lot here that could have been so difficult to imagine or understand, but the writer utilizes simple, clear wording and sentence structure to execute the vision in a way that didn't make you have to go back and reread it multiple times to understand.
Gorgeous.
But again, all that said, do all that. But if I'm reading your script, I just want a little sauce on top.
Give me a little bit of sauce.
And not ketchup. Give me some mustard.
A little Dijon.
Mm-hmm.
Dijon. I only have one don't, and I already kind of talked about it. Daddy, don't take on too many characters when it's ultimately not necessary and could be taking away from your main characters. Consider how much we needed them. Minimizing Nina's relationship with Beth was better for the plot and what actually needed to be focused on. Just pretty much that. This movie flirted already with maybe one too many characters in the script, but the film really, even like Victoria,
which is funny because there's not a lot of characters, but for such a contained story, it was too many characters.
Yeah, truly. That obviously for each story that's going to be different, but like there was so much more clarity in the watch. I felt like, whereas in the script there was twice where I was like, okay, because you can't tell that Erica's the mom in the beginning. So I was like, is Erica just like a weirdo? Like Erica was in a weird spot.
And the voices aren't very distinct either.
No, it's all no. And whereas so much so in the film that I just was like, like maybe make sure that you don't have a supporting character taking up a little too much space.
Yeah, I couldn't really think of a daddy don't, but I will piggyback on Carly's and say yes, that. But yeah, that was Black Swan, guys.
Happy
finale.
Finalsies.
So I don't know how much time we'll take off Script Babies, but I mean it'll probably at most be a month before we do the second season. But that's just for them. We're gonna start start recording season 2 immediately, peeps. But just for like marketing and like doing a photo shoot and stuff. And also for sustainability, because we'll see. Maybe if this really takes off, this can be a thing where it's like every week. But babies, we got a life. Script Daddy Carly's got a real baby.
She's a script. She's just a mommy.
We love you guys. Thank you for listening to season 1. Give us your suggestions.
Give us your thoughts. We're like, Colin and I literally just are constantly texting each other like, this is so much fun. This is the best. And we're so excited. It's been so special that it's like just been our sweet little precious babe, but we're also just like so excited to put this out into the world and hopefully have it resonate with whoever it's meant to resonate with, because it will. And let's be script friends, script babies, script family,
script fam.
Oh God.
Script fam.
Okay, I love you.
Love you too.
Bye.
Bye.
We want to give a huge thank you to our incredible producer, Scott Simmock, and our amazing sound mixer, Ryan Fee. We literally could not do this without either of them. So thank you guys.